Hi YouTube, Watchify here with another video. I'm gonna take a closer look at the recently released Seiko 5 SRPK17 now that I've been able to wear it for a couple of weeks. I'll give you my honest opinion on the watch and go over its pros and cons. This model is another Seiko limited edition that is this time paying tribute to the first Seiko 5 Sports model 6106-8120 that came out 55 years ago. It is limited to 15,555 pieces, which I know is a lot, so you shouldn't have any trouble locating one for the foreseeable future. It was released along with 3 other models that are also celebrating Seiko 5s from the late 60s, but this SRPK17 is the only one with the old Seiko 5 badge and the word sports on the dial. It's a pretty faithful recreation of the original with some improvements that I'll go over. This watch retails for $415 US, but can be purchased for around $360 currently from sellers on eBay. So how does this watch differ from the original? Instead of a non-hacking 6106 automatic movement, you're getting a newer 4R36 automatic movement with hacking and hand winding features. Instead of 7-bar water resistance, you get 10-bar with this SRPK17. The original watch looks like it had an applied Seiko logo, but this watch has it printed on the dial. The lug width on the original was 19 millimeters, but it's now the more common 20 millimeter. This newer version has drilled lug holes for easier strap changes, and if I'm not mistaken, Seiko didn't introduce their proprietary Hardlex mineral crystal until 1970, so the original would have had regular mineral crystal. The recessed crown is a bit larger also, and if you really wanted to buy the original watch in 2023, I see pre-owned versions of it in varying condition selling for between $400 to $500. Case size on this SRPK17 is 39 millimeters, which is my preferred size nowadays. Thickness is 12.6 millimeters and the lug-to-lug distance is only 42.8 millimeters. It's this short lug-to-lug distance coupled with the 12.6 millimeter thickness that makes the watch seem like it rides high on the wrist, but this doesn't bother me. The case design is really interesting and something I don't often see. Overall, it has a round shape that slopes inwards as you leave the top of the case. There are polished bevels in the sections between the lugs. The sides are polished as well, and also the bottom of the case is polished. The top of the case has a circular finish to it. Staying true to the original, Seiko keeps the small push-pull crown at almost 4 o'clock, and you can barely see it jut out from the case. It's this design choice that makes it difficult to hand wind the watch though, but for me it's not that big of a deal. The screw-down caseback also tries to stay true to the look of the original watch, as you can see here, and I'm glad Seiko didn't use a see-through caseback. There is a brushed section of the caseback that has the limited edition wording, along with the number of the watch that you have out of the 15,555 made. My watch is number 2,520. The coin edge bezel is bidirectional, and I find the friction to be just about right, not too loose or too stiff. I find it similar to the bidirectional bezel of the Seiko 5 GMT SSK003 that I have. Still, I've seen the bezel move a bit after wearing it all day, probably because it brushed up against something. I liked the style of the aluminum bezel insert and was really glad to see a lume pip at 12, which is something none of my other Seiko 5s have in regards to their OEM insert at least. The dial is covered by a slightly domed Hardlex crystal, The dial has a matte black look with a bright white edge that is interrupted every minute mark. The word sports remains in blue, which is a nice detail. The indices are simple short bar shapes except for the wider 12 o'clock indice, and there is no indice at 3 o'clock. They all have green Seiko Lumbrite and are outlined in silver. Of note is that even though this is not the Japanese market model SBSA223, it still reads Made in Japan at the bottom of the dial. Of course, the only other difference between those two models is being that this watch has a day date for R36 movement. The SBSA23 has kanji as the alternate day of the week language. The frame date window shape matches the original watch, which is another cool detail. The hour and minute hands are polished baton style with loomed sections, and the second hand remains red with a loom dot near its tip. The brushed metal rehote remains as well. For me, the style of bracelet used here was another reason I was attracted to this watch. In my first impressions video I did a couple weeks ago, I mentioned that I don't have any watch with this style of links. I think the look goes really well with the watch, and it gives the impression that this is one of those old school metal bracelets that stretches out. The links are very small, and because the bracelet is this style, it doesn't have a full range of articulation. So it's not as flexible as a normal bracelet, but I still find it comfortable to wear. It has straight end links, tapers from 19.8 millimeters to 17.8 millimeters at the clasp. Based upon the pictures I found online, I can see that Seiko chose to change the original bracelet style. I had to remove 6 links to fit my 6 3/4 inch wrist. You get the smaller style stamped fold over clasp with push button release, and it only has 2 micro adjustment holes. So to recap, so far I've enjoyed owning this watch, and I think Seiko has another winner on their hands with this retro looking SRPK17. Did it take a lot of effort for Seiko to just re-release a watch that originally came out 55 years ago? No, it didn't, but I think it introduces a classic style of Seiko 5 sports watch to a new generation of watch consumers and collectors who wouldn't have necessarily known about the original or been able to obtain one. I feel this watch is a worthy add to any Seiko collection. That's going to be it for this video. Hopefully you found it interesting or helpful. If you did, feel free to leave a like, comment, or even consider subscribing. I of course wanted to thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in another video.